I got the track all nicely glued down, but guess what? I forgot to attach the wires. So places like there where they should be, they're not. Which means I'm going to have to pry that up and attach the wires. Let's see how I did that. Let's get started. Since it's been a little while since I've had a chance to do anything, I thought I'd come out and do some work. So I've got to get these joints lined up. Those ones line up perfectly with the seam. And on the other side, it's not bad. It's probably close enough. So the only one I have to worry about is this curve right here. It's going to have to be cut. And you can see those marks I've made there are wrong. I'll have to redo that and cut them with my new Dremel tool. Before we get started, I wanted to show off my birthday present, a brand new Dremel tool. I've had a few of these over the years. And even including some off-brand ones, but I like Dremel. I think they're the best in the business. You'll see why I like this particular one. Variable speed, as you can hear there. That's the lowest. Pick up from there. So let's try making a cut with this brand new tool. Got the track all marked out and hang it out over space. That's the easiest way to make a cut. And I can't operate the tool and hold the camera at the same time, so let's see how I make out. There's the cut all made. Even at the lowest speed, these Dremel tools, they do melt the plastic bit. You can see bits kind of hanging off on both sides that like you can see it there. I'm obviously going to have to clean that up. But the new piece will fit on the lift out section and it should be good. So here's the cut piece on the lift out. You can see the joints line up very nicely on the main line here, and the curve lines up very nicely over here. I've got the tracks all laid out, just dry on the foam all the way around. And you can see the joints, as I said before, line up very nicely on the lift out. So the next trick is to get everything fastened down. But before I get that, I have to make sure the tracks are all lined up and arranged perfectly before I start gluing. So I have to make sure they're all just exactly where I want them. And now I have to start gluing it down. I got the main line aligned the way I want it, consistent with the edge of the layout, measuring it. So then it looks, there again, the joints are great. But the problem is over here. When I got it lined up, I realized, oh, this is misaligned. Now before, when I had them together, it made sense, but the Kato Unitrack will flex a bit at the joints, so you can see it's there together. But when I noticed, when I was measuring things, guess what? It's not straight. See how the angle's off toward the right there. So now I have to fix this. We'll get back to the misalignment issue. But before I start gluing, I could need to trace along the edges of the track with this mechanical pencil because it makes a bit of a dent. And that way I'll know exactly where to put the glue. I've marked out the edges of the track. You can see the mark there because the pencil makes a dent in the foam. And the other thing I did is I marked out all along where the pieces of track join together. You can see and I've marked the center plus a little bit on each side. That way I can smear the glue just on the joints of the track. Because with Kato Unitrack, it's best just to glue it at the joints because it's hollow inside. As you can see from this piece of track, it is hollow and there's nothing much to glue to. But at where the joints are, there's these cross pieces you can put some glue on. And that's next. I've put dabs of glue everywhere where there was going to be a joint with my good old trusty wood glue. I was originally thinking about using silicone caulking. Some people do. But I don't know, so silicone tubes are a hassle. So you can see I've put everywhere where there's a joint, and you can see where I've marked the joints there, where I've put a dab of glue down. And because it takes a little time to dry, I don't have to rush and do it and put it down. So I did the whole stretch of track along the front. And so now I just have to lay the track down along that line. The track is now all laid down on the glue, and you can see it there. And of course, because this glue takes time to dry, I've got to let that set before I can carry on. So returning to the lift out piece, I've glued the track down there aligned with the main line because it's now dry. And you can see all the spots where I put the glue, just like before where all the joints are. But now I have to deal with this whole alignment issue here. And it turns out I've got a bit of a gap too. It didn't line up that way the way I thought either. So the next thing I have to do is I have to move all this piece of track here kind of down like toward me. And then I also have to come up with a little bridge piece for that gap. I got the alignments all figured out. I've used this little bridge piece here to try to bridge that gap. And then so around over the corner over here, I've used this adjustment piece, which can be stretched to accommodate any kind of funny gaps you end up with. So now it's all lined up, and I probably have to do something about shimming underneath that gap, maybe with a piece of cardstock or styrene or something. And so the next thing, I'm going to be gluing down the rest of the tracks over there. I've completed gluing down the track all the way around, and you can see the dabs of glue at the joints like I was doing before. And all the way around. So there's some weights I've used to hold down the track in a couple spots. These are really handy if you're into hobbies and things and you need something that's a little bit heavy, and they're quite precisely machined square. They're called 1, 2, 3 blocks, and you can get them where else, like everything else, on Amazon. Carrying on, hi Dave, around the corner, you see I've used the blocks over here too. The reason we need those is the track tends to lift a little bit when going from the flat section to the downgrade, and the blocks just keep everything in place. Carrying on below the window and around to the corner at the bottom, and you can see I'm probably going to need to shim that section right there, and around the curve and along the sidewall here where the storage and staging are, it's going to be all the way back around to where I was before. This all has to dry now, so we'll check back on it later. Now that the glue's set, I realized I made a huge mistake. I forgot about the feeder wires. And the feeder wires on Kato, they go at the joints, they replace the joiners. So like spots like that. So it means that's going to have to be pried up in more than one spot because I like to use a lot of feeders. So I'll do one there, then I'll do one at the side there and do one across the back, one at the other side, and of course there'll need to be more on the lift out as well. This is where I'm going to put the feeders on the front, and I need to break the glue bond here with the spatula like this. Pretty easy. And then I have to lift up the tracks at this spot, pull the joiners off, replace them with the feeders, and then drill a hole through the table to feed the wire through. To get the joiners off Kato Unitrack, they give you this little tool which has a lot of functions, but you can use it to do this. See those two little tabs I just pointed at? You slip them on the end of the track. You can't see from my fat hands too well there, but you know, if you can see that, just behind the joiner and pull, and there you have it, removed. Here we see the track with the two wire feeders attached. The next step is at where I marked the joint there, I have to make a hole to feed the wires through. I've made a mark in far enough from the edge of the table not to interfere with the table wall, and that hole now has to be big enough to fit my button hook thing that I used to pull the wire through that I made from a piece of coat hanger. That's the next step. This is a 9/32 drill bit that I'll be using to make the hole. The hole is drilled, and now I just need to feed the wire through with my wire hanger button hook thing. I've got the wire threaded into the end of the hook, and it's ready to pull through. You just pull it down, and there you go. And then you just pull the wire more to get the track to come down snugly, but of course I'll have to put glue there before I can do that. There's the wire joint all glued back in place, and you can see I had to do some other ones because I had to pull up some other tracks to be able to lift that one. And there's the wire running through the table, firmly attached. Now I just have to repeat that for the rest of the main line. I also forgot that there are 3 turnouts or switches on the main line that need power fed to them, because inside the switch there's an electric solenoid to throw the points back and forth. So I need to wire those up as well, and fortunately there's only 3 of them on the main line. There's a turnout back in place with its control wire hanging down through the table as well. So now I just have to go around and fix everything else. On the 2 spots where I feed wires for the risers, the issue is the riser itself is too high for the length of my drill. So I cut this groove using the drill for the wires to feed through, and then I had to make the hole beside the riser. I also forgot about the lift out and some issues about that. So if the lift out's not in place, if it's been taken out, I don't want a train to go hurtling off into space. So I need to isolate tracks on either side using these insulating joiners, this side and over here on this side. So that the idea being that if the lift out has been removed, those two tracks will be dead on either side. I also forgot that this turnout needs to be wired and feeders need to be run on the lift out as well. So fixing those things now. Feeder wires are run. You can see one there and everything's glued back into place that I had to pull up. Feeder wires there. And there are also feeder wires underneath this weight here. Let me just pull that up and you can see underneath. There they are. Plus all the things I had to do for the lift out. So I had to do the feeder wires and the insulator, and then on the other side, insulators, and there's other feeder wires, plus the control wires for the turnout, plus power feeders for the lift out itself. So that's all for this time. I'll see you next time, and happy railroading.